Hi everyone, Danny here today to talk to you about the book Good to Great by Jim Collins, narrated by Jim Collins. This book is a classic in the leadership genre because it is a unique book that looks at leadership from a perspective that no other book has looked at leadership. Its investigation into leadership has taken it down paths that no one else has gone down. It addresses areas that no one else has addressed. Basically, Jim Collins leads a research group, and they want to research and discover what separates the great companies from good companies. And they had a criteria, very strict criteria, that a company had to meet to get counted as a great company. And then they had, one of the criteria was there had to be a good company, same time frame, same business, same everything, that they could compare the two to and bounce them off. The start of the research project, one of their criteria was leadership would not be one of the things that took a good company to a great company. They wanted to avoid leadership. Leadership was overdone, didn't need to address leadership. They wanted to find out what other than leadership separated the great companies from the good companies. The problem was that all of the research brought them back to leadership. And eventually they had to sit back and say, okay, it is leadership. Leadership is what separates, and he had to give in. He fought it. No, it's not going to be leadership. Finally, he had to give in. One of my favorite chapters of the book is when he finally gives in. Okay, fine. So what separates the leaders, and what are we going to call these leaders? And so then the book takes a different path, and they start researching what separated the great company, the leadership of the great companies, from the leadership of the good companies. And they talk about, what are we going to call them? Didn't want to call them servant leaders because, one, servant leaders, a buzzword, it's overdone. But then two, it didn't fit these leaders. Yes, there was an element of servant leadership to them, but that just was only an element of it. It did not describe leaders who were willing to fire their relatives, who were willing to stand up and say, hey, we're going to sell the mills, including the mills that started this company. We're going to sell all of the restaurants. We are going to take this company into a totally new direction, and had the courage to stand up. As one of the great leaders said, if you have a cancer in your arm, you have to have the courage to cut your arm off. Servant leadership just did not describe those type of leaders. So they banded about, and they finally came up with level 5 leadership. And then they go on to discuss what separates level 4 leaders from level 5 leaders. What's really nice here is level 4 leaders and level 5 leaders have a lot in common. If you think about it, a good football player, let's say good quarterback, is going to have a lot in common with a great quarterback. It's not going to be, the great quarterback does everything differently than the good quarterback. What separates the good quarterback from the great quarterback is just going to be a few key little things that, if that good quarterback could figure that out, that good quarterback could become a great quarterback like this other quarterback. That's what they address. So as a result, they talk about a lot of things that a lot of other books, they talk about things find me a leadership book where they will tell you that, say you get hired as a CEO and you want to take your company from good to great. First thing you do is you ignore the direction the company's going. That's unimportant. You don't have to figure out a strategy to get yourself to be a great company. You don't have to figure out which direction to take the company. That's not what great leaders do. Instead, what you need to do is get the wrong people off the bus, get the right people on the bus, and then once you have the right people on the bus, you can figure out where to take the bus. That's totally different than other books that I have listened to and read and what they talk about doing. A lot of the things they talk about, a lot of the examples they give really represent something that would be extremely difficult to implement. It would take someone who was extremely strong and extremely courageous and willing to stand up and truly be, I mean, we talk about being a bold leader and all this other stuff, but a lot of it is, yes, be a bold leader in the style that, fits the mold of what everybody imagines a bold leader to be, then that's good. No, this is, be completely alien to what everyone else is doing kind of a thing. It's a great book. I've listened to it more than once. Jim Collins is an amazing narrator. It's one of those books that it would be easy to say, which I've said about other books, there's not a lot that a narrator can add to or detract from the content of the book. The content just is what it is. This is probably one of those books where it would be hard for a narrator to add a lot to the book, but Jim Collins adds a lot to the book. Not just the fluctuation, but the surprise in his voice at some of the foundings some of the things that they found, that his emotion, it's just, he's wonderful narrator. Easy to listen to, easy to absorb the material, not so easy to implement a lot of the material in the book. And he talks a bit about that at one point. If you're a level 4 leader, how do you go from being a level 4 leader to being a level 5 leader? What do you do? And, is it possible to go from being a level 4 leader to a level 5 leader? This is a book that is absolutely on my recommended list. Cannot say more good things about it. You will enjoy it. You will learn a lot. The stories he gives are wonderful stories. The comparisons he gives are wonderful comparisons. And, a lot of what he talks about will take some conventional wisdom and turn it on its head, and explain why it belongs on its head, and let you realize, okay, that would take an amazing amount of courage to go that route, but that does make sense that needs to be put on its head. If you enjoy my video, please subscribe. If you have any feedback, I welcome any and all feedback, and I hope you all have a very wonderful day.